You're listening to the ESO Network, your station for all things geek.
Hey everyone, this is Nick, doing one more clandestine record before I remember to hopefully bring a better microphone. So, welcome to October. We're finally getting there, and we're going to be doing monster movies. Matt Quaid curated this month, so I hope you enjoy. Today we're starting with my pick, which is a perennial desire of this show, wait and see, can't wait to do it kind of movie, the horrible 1998 Godzilla. Now, that being said, we had more fun with it, I think, than we expected, but oof, it's rough. Stay tuned all month for more monster movies, of course. Next, if you're listening to this the day it comes out, Cineprov is performing, and we're doing Gamera the Incredible. And while I'm not going to be there, I will be there, but I'm not going to perform, so whatever. However, on Friday night at 10 p.m., if you're listening, I will be performing with Cineprov at Monsterama, which is a local monster con. So, yeah. Also, keep sending in those movie requests. We've gotten some good ones, and we'll make some selections for listener request month come spring. So, thanks, guys. Please enjoy Matthew Broderick.
So far, as of now, dozens of people are reported killed, thousands of others injured. Civil defense stations are being set up throughout the island of Manhattan.
Since the World Trade Center bombing, hundreds of thousands of people have jammed the streets in the largest evacuation in the history of this city. And many people, many people are not happy.
Now that evacuation is unprecedented.
Death Star plans are not in the main computer.
Where are those transmissions you intercepted, including those of the Monster Sci-Fi Show podcast? I need my weekly dose of sci-fi news with movie and TV reviews and commentary.
We intercepted no transmission. The consular ship.
If this is a consular ship, where is the ambassador?
Sorry, I was indisposed. I would give it a moment to air out if you know what I mean. Who needs the ambassador? I thought I heard someone call out for me. What in the bloody hell did you do to Ramus? Speak up. Which one of those chest buttons calls your supervisor? Imbecile.
Geez, mister. Honestly, he was, like that movie guy. Right, fellas?
Mister, I am an ambassador.
Let me see your identification.
Shut it, Bob. You are as clumsy as you are stupid. Doesn't have to show you your ID.
We don't need to see his identification.
You can subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, Libsyn.com, and Stitcher Radio. The Monster Sci-Fi Show is part of the ESO Network. It's sci-fi from a certain point of view.
Come with me. Don't be afraid. Yeah. Come with me. I close my eyes and I see you.
Welcome to My Movie Defend Your Childhood. This week, we watch 1998's Godzilla. Insert joke. Roland Emmerich's Answer to Dignity. I'm Nick Hoffman, host of My Movie Defend Your Childhood, and on panel we've got
Matthew W. Quinn, author of The Thing in the Woods.
And
hello, this is Daniel, and I think my story just walked outside the window.
So this is... Well, actually, first, I'm going to toss to Master Quinn here. Matt, you chose this month. This happens to be my movie, so I'll talk after you. But what were you thinking with Monster Month?
Well, Halloween, for starters. And also, I realized that I probably it's not necessarily like horror movies per se. It's like monster movies because I have zero interest in the torture porn films like Saw. I'm not really into true crime or serial killer movies. But yeah, all the dinosaurs and aliens and monsters and whatnot, I'm cool with it. Maybe in some respects I haven't grown up since age 8.
You know what, buddy? I not only am I with you 100% because I love these movies, but I would say the other side of it is that these movies are the fun niche, right? Like serial killer stuff. I mean, some of the cartoony movies like Mike Myers and Freddy Krueger, they're so absurd that, like, to me, they're not scary.
Well, yeah. Freddy vs. Jason is funny, but I don't want to watch. But movies like Seven or Saw or serial killers are real. They're not fun, scary. They're
right. And to me, monsters are fun, scary. Like last season when we did Deep Blue Sea, not only was it one of our most popular episodes because it's fun, it's funny, it's like a cult classic, but it's absurd. Like there are scary moments, but it's fun to be scared by monsters. Like the idea that a giant boogerman is going to come after me is more real than the idea that there's a Godzilla coming to attack.
I don't think Seven was like supposed to be a traditional serial killer horror movie, but I am definitely with you on Saw, which was always just a ripoff of Seven anyway.
Well, and I mean, like, we did Scream on this, but Scream is inherently funny.
Yeah, that was meant to be a spoof.
But like the Tobey Hooper first Chainsaw Massacre is a great movie, but it's a movie I don't revisit a lot because it is truly terrifying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That dinner scene with that woman screaming for her life. I mean, yeah.
Or a lot of the Rob Zombie, like House of a Thousand Corpses.
Ooh.
It's set up like a it's set up like an elementary school haunted house. But it is truly terrifying. Like that scene with Chris Hardwick's like burbling torso in a pit is not comfortable.
Chris Hardwick was in a Rob Zombie movie?
It was fat Chris Hardwick, so you might not recognize him. It's Terminator 3 Chris Hardwick.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's fun, scary movies like monsters and whatnot, and then there's let's watch people getting mutilated and crap, and that's no fun.
There's still an artistic point to some of the latter, not a lot. I mean, if it's mutilation for mutilation's sake, then you're right.
Like the elegant Human Centipede. You know, nothing says masterpiece theater.
That movie is proof of the universal depravity of humankind.
I was going to say it's the proof that if you have something gross enough that someone throws up, they'll throw money at you.
It's the Salvador Dali technique then, because I'm pretty sure that was an Orwell quote of a Dali play.
You know, give me 2 girls and I'll give you a cup.
Yeah, that's the most horrifying thing I've ever seen.
So I haven't watched it.
Neither have I. I've just seen the reaction videos and that was enough.
So to wit, I chose this movie. This is a stay tuned and a half. We've referenced Gojira. And then we thought, let's do the bad one instead. This is Matthew Broderick and Jeno Reno playing a cartoon Pepe Le Pew Frenchman
who's looking for a good cup of coffee in New York.
You would say this is French roast?
This is 3 Simpsons actors and actresses. This is a Roland Emmerich film who was so upset that a man in America couldn't like Independence Day. That man, namely being Roger Ebert, that he named the mayor Ebert and his assistant Gene.
And he's fat and he's always demanding candy.
Has anybody ever read Ebert's review to this movie?
He goes, yes, I knew you referenced me, and no, I still hated this movie.
Well, it was more like, no, yes, I know that was supposed to be me. You let me off lightly. Now that I've inspired a character in a Godzilla movie, the only thing I can hope for now is for Ingmar Bergman to make a movie where they're reading my reviews in hushed tones.
I mean, and here's the thing. I mean, and that was me and Daniel's moment to just kick this movie one last time before we actually get into it. But the thing that frustrates me the most about this is purists of Godzilla already were hating the premise because it's a Japanese movie, and for the most part, they're cheesy, campy movies. This movie has no idea what the tone is. It's all American, and rather than letting it be at all Japanese and just an American director, it takes all the joy out of it and then adds 30 minutes to the runtime.
Well, the original one came out 9 years after Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So it was still about a nation that was trying to come to terms with what had happened to it and what this new weapon that had been launched against it was, which was this giant radioactive monster that was destroying its cities. So there was actually a reason for the Godzilla movies to exist, and here there's not.
No. Well, there's the French nuclear testing, which I remember when I was a kid, that was this big controversial thing.
Yes, that's very true. That's very true. But at the same time, that doesn't have the urgency that, you know, 2 major cities getting bombed with a nuke.
Yeah, because like the thing is...
Well, maybe if you're not Greenpeace.
Well, right. But we're not Greenpeace.
You sure?
Are you?
No.
Are you telling us you're Greenpeace? Matt Quinn, Greenpeace support. Like, but that's the point.
Well, I do like the idea of the Pleistocene rewilding. You know, how much of this uninhabited areas you turn back to the Ice Age as possible, but save the trees.
That's a later Roland Emmerich movie that would come out in 2004.
That's exactly right. That's his not next movie, but the movie after that, the Day After Tomorrow.
Yep.
And then he also did 2012.
I think so. He did that Mel Gibson movie in between with...
The Passion of the Christ.
No.
Apocalypto?
No, The Patriot.
Yes, that's probably his best movie.
I just remember growing up in South Carolina.
His best movie is Stargate.
Oh, I don't know. Now I'm on the fence.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I did mean to interrupt you.
I might agree with that because I gave Stargate a better review than Godzilla.
Than The Patriot?
Oh, no. I haven't seen The Patriot in so long I haven't reviewed it.
Now, I will say, a movie that he did, which I it's like a guilty pleasure movie, Universal Soldier.
That was him? I thought that was Paul W. I thought that was the guy that did the Resident Evil movies.
No, he has the directorial, at least according to the IMDb Tribune here.
Oh.
Yeah, no, Dolph Lundgren and Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Together at last.
It's the heat of 1992.
I hate myself for thinking that's as funny as it is.
No, it's because I know you. But Stargate, I mean... Independence Day is... See, the thing is, Independence Day is not a good movie, but it's also the greatest movie that's ever been made. So
yeah. For what it was trying to do, it worked.
But, I mean, how do you say... I don't know what voice to give him, so I'm just going to give him an asshole voice. Hey, douchebag! I'm going to take Ian Malcolm, Jeff Goldblum, who's the sexiest, hottest, brilliant nerd character ever, and replace him with Matthew Broderick.
I'm singing in the rain, just singing in the rain.
Nick, are you trying to be Animal and Lucy?
I'm trying to stuff a sock down the mouth of happiness. Like, because he sounds like he's just... Because... When he's doing Ferris Bueller, he's here and he's confident. But then when he gets older, and after, of course, he's killed a man.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
He was convicted of vehicular homicide in Ireland. He just sounds like he has no will to live.
That's why Election was such a great movie, because you could truly tell he has no will to live.
And I also think, who's he married to? Sheryl Crow? No,
Sarah Jessica Parker.
She sucks the youth out of him every day, right?
I don't know.
He looks like he's 12 as a 40-year-old man. But whatever. Here's the thing. Between Will Smith and Jeff Goldblum, that movie stinks of charisma. And I like it. Roger Ebert didn't. Roger Ebert
He gave it 2.5 stars, which is like right on the threshold between I like it and I don't like it.
And Siskel hated it.
Yeah.
But because like Siskel is film school asshole 101, but that's who he was. And Roger Ebert is man of the people. That's why he liked Spawn. Like he just liked spectacle.
3.5 stars for Spawn.
And he hated, well, he was indifferent to Independence Day. And the thing was, though, at that point, he was a bronze statue of a man. Like, this was the height of Siskel and Ebert. And Roland Emmerich took offense to it. So you make the blundering mayor.
Every time the mayor showed up, I just was wondering if he was going to ask Godzilla about that Barton Fink feeling.
Well, I'm going to offend some people here. I thought that Mayor Ebert and his assistant Gene were pretty funny.
But here's the thing.
You offend me right now. That's what you do.
That's what I live to do, Daniel.
Yeah,
but Matt, here's what I would say. I would agree with you 100%. And I like the actor Michael Lerner, who plays him. Don't name him Roger Ebert. Like, literally, it's like literally saying... I was in grad school and a professor failed my paper, so I named my dissertation after Squiet because she hated my work. Like, why would you do that to anyone?
Plus, for a joke,
because you're supremely petty.
Yeah. So why would we reward it?
Because it's funny.
But it's not.
No. It would have worked if it was like one scene of the mayor at a rally and then Godzilla marches by and squashes the mayor. And then it's like re-elect Mayor Ebert's in the background. That would have worked for what they were trying to go for. But for the mayor to be in every other scene, it was a very tired old joke by the end of it because the mayor wasn't a character.
Well, and again, frankly... The reason why it doesn't play either is that the joke is wrong. Ebert was not the loudest voice. Siskel was the asshole on the show.
Well, they both were on the show. They both would play
they were
off
assholes to each other.
Yeah.
But like the arrogant one was Siskel. Like that was the thing because he was a smart guy. And so again, Matt, like to you, it would be like someone who hated one of your books then becomes a character in your next book. Like, you're not that petty.
Well, I mean, there is a tradition for that, though.
Now I want to try.
There is a big tradition for that, though.
The problem is the only person who hates my books is you.
No, I like your books.
It was a Melonhead
well,
thing.
Right. We can talk about your anti-special ed book later. But I was thinking about that one guy who wrote negative reviews. You remember talking about your film reviews?
Oh, that...
The anonymous commenter.
Yeah, well, since he's anonymous, I can't put him in the next book and have him eaten by a dinosaur. Unless it's maybe Assange, then he's anonymous, sort of.
That's funny.
Well, I mean, there's a tradition of doing that even amongst other film directors. I know...
oh, my God. Who's the guy? Uwe Boll threatens to box anyone?
Yeah. Well, there's this unreleased Orson Welles movie that I think Netflix...
Incredible Ambersons?
The Magnificent Ambersons.
Yes.
That was just a delete. Half the movie was deleted and it's never been recovered. But this one's like The Other Side of the Wind, which I think Netflix is going to put out. Yeah. But there's a character in there supposedly who's based on Pauline Kael, and Orson Welles hated Pauline Kael because she claimed that he wasn't really why Citizen Kane was good. She laid it all at the screenwriter's foot instead of his.
Well, I mean, Pauline Kael is a notorious pain in the ass, though.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, my favorite story that I've actually heard about her is Wes Anderson, which you may know, but essentially Wes Anderson got a theater, set it up, and she was at this point, I think, dying of cancer. Like she
was like 1 or 2 years away from passing.
Yeah, and
at that point,
showed her Rushmore, which is arguably a masterpiece, but if not, at least a very good movie. And she patted him on the shoulder and said, "I'm sure your next film will be good."
Aww.
And you're just like,
and he was devastated. I'm
and
sure.
I mean, because he is him. And probably the Coens are the closest in the modern era to be in the auteur theory, which is bullshit, Saris, whatever. But they're the closest that we have.
You don't think Roland Emmerich is an auteur?
Good segue, but give me 2 seconds. But the idea is that someone who so cares about a film for one critic to matter that much shows that they're insecure. And obviously Wes Anderson is not that person because he went on to do better things. This movie is a mistake from the beginning. Don't remake Godzilla. ToHo makes Godzilla for a reason, because there's that fear. As the aggressors, you cannot make a movie to say, "F yeah, America." That's not how this movie works. No. Godzilla is supposed to be the fear of military strength. And the military here, don't get me wrong, Roland Emmerich make the most incompetent military ever to film.
Yeah, the ones they can't shoot anything, or that damn lizard is too quick and gets out of the way.
Even though it's a 500-foot tall lizard.
I'm going to correct you here, Matt.
It's a blue whale on legs.
I'm going to correct you, Matt. He doesn't get out of the way. He pulls a Bugs Bunny and goes a 23 skidoo and ducks out of the way of homing missiles. Not once, not twice, but 4 times in this movie, to which the military is then responsible for destroying the landmarks.
That's the goddamn Chrysler building you're talking about.
Last week, we talked about V for Vendetta and how this was like a truther conspiracy. This movie is a truther conspiracy because the military literally destroys every building in New York other than the 2 towers.
Yeah, and they have And they keep sending out infantry with rifles and rocket-propelled grenades against something that is entirely too big. Cloverfield got it right. Cloverfield, when the kaiju comes to town, you get the tanks out. Lots of them, not just 2 or 3.
Or nuke Manhattan, which is, I think, what they did in Cloverfield, right?
Yeah, or fuel air bomb, something that's about as big.
Yeah.
I will say, though, that's one critique I had about Lost World. I want to see what a T-Rex responds to when you're just shooting at it, which we don't see in any of those first 3 movies, really. It'd be great for someone to... Jurassic World 9 now, by this point, because they already filmed Fallen Empire, which I didn't even bother.
Oh, who cares?
I liked it.
I'm sure you did. It was called the worst movie ever made by about... We'll get there.
They're entitled to their wrong opinion.
Here's the thing. I want the next Jurassic World movie to just be Turok Dinosaur Hunter.
Hell, let's just make Turok Dinosaur Hunter a movie. That'd be pretty... Oh, wait, they had Turok Son of Stone was a direct-to-video animated movie.
I'm sure you watched it.
Yes, I did.
I'm sure you reviewed it.
Yes, I did.
Did you write a sequel to it? Because How I Could Have Done It, Matt Quinn, the O.J. Simpson story version of it.
No, I am not nearly that lifeless.
Not unlike the Transformers movie, where you did write a How I Would Have Done It If I Had
Check
done
out
it.
the Revenge of the Fallen reboot.
I love you, buddy.
On fanfiction.net.
So I guess for those of you who listen to other podcasts too, tune in to January when Lost Kingdom or whatever it's called is going to be on We Hate Movies Worst of 2018 and Flophouse Worst of 2018.
Probably How Did This Get Made?
The Worst of 2018. It's literally the worst reviewed blockbuster this year. So.
Do you think the T-Rex is the Jason of the dinosaur group?
And the Raptors are like the Chucky. Anyway, we should get into this movie just a skosh. Matt, you gave us the last plot synopsis. So, Daniel, why don't you give us a plot synopsis?
So, during the French-Polynesian nuclear test, I think it's a Komodo dragon or like an iguana
was bitten by a radioactive Spider-Man.
Was bitten by a radioactive Frenchman.
Yeah.
There's
of course, the way they all smell.
Mon Dieu.
Now that's racist. Okay, so apparently there was a lizard that got infected with radiation, and its offspring turned into these giant Godzilla-sized lizards. I mean, Godzilla-sized, I know it's Godzilla, but I think I'm fair to use that adjective. Anyway, it starts making its way to New York City because it's secretly pregnant and wants to nest. The military hires this guy who's been studying worms in Chernobyl to try and help them track the creature and figure out what it is. He follows them to New York, and Godzilla shows up and wrecks hell to the point where Manhattan has to get evacuated, and the military has to find Godzilla's nest and destroy all the Godzilla offspring with the help of the worm guy and his journalist ex-girlfriend.
There's so much there, man. Like,
I'm having a hard time compartmentalizing everything that happens in this movie, and I really shouldn't.
Well, and that's my first general critique of the movie, and I don't disagree with Matt in one aspect. There are fun parts of this, but to me, it's so weighted down. It's so heavy with things that shouldn't matter. Like a good Godzilla movie is literally monster shows up. We need to figure out how to stop it. Mm-hmm. There isn't eggs. There isn't like who's to blame. There isn't,
or a sexual harassment subplot,
or who gets credit for film footage. God, who could possibly care?
Or the French Secret Service trying to cover up everything.
Well, the fact they even acknowledge the French Secret Service, the DGSC, exists, I thought was kind of cool.
That was kind of cool, but it was the wrong movie to do it in.
Or if it was the one side plot, like if it was literally just one thing. The military was trying to stop Godzilla and the French was trying to cover their tracks. Then you have a more complex Godzilla movie. But there's also weird romantic subplots, and I'm sorry.
So this was basically Tom Clancy's Godzilla.
Exactly.
I never thought of it that way.
Good way to put it. But, I mean, here's the thing. Nick Totopoulos, and first of all, I said that like a human being. I'm sorry. I've met people from Italy and Greece. You just pronounce the letters. It's Totopoulos, but Totopopoulos and Totopoulos and Papopoulos.
It's a Mappa Papa Fragilistic Expialidocious.
And here's the thing.
That's a good one.
And here's the thing that's an asshole about that. Nick Totopoulos is Matthew Broderick's character. He's the hero. They got the last name Totopoulos because the guy who designed this character model is Patrick Totopoulos. So what is Roland Emmerich's thank you for designing this model for him? I'm going to insult your name for the next 2.5 hours. Holy shit, this movie is too long.
It was funny the first couple times, then it just kept going.
It was never funny. It was never funny.
You're entirely too nice.
No, I'll give Matt one thing. When a joke is unexpected, it's fine. And like the idea, again, the Mulder character we were talking about, which might have been deleted by now, but the idea that Mulder shows up and he's confident and swaggery and he's like, Mr. Papapatopoulos, and he's like, and he gets the name wrong, that's funny the first time. Because we're introduced to Matthew Broderick looking at worms and saying, I believe the worms are 18% larger. And you're just
in the middle of Chernobyl. That was weird.
While singing in the rain.
We're introduced to a cartoon character of a scientist who's 5'0". Matthew Broderick is we represent the...
Yeah, he is.
And he's singing to himself while measuring the length of other worms in Russia.
Hey now.
Other worms. What are you implying about Matthew Broderick?
I think that what he's implying is
when he saw
that
Vicki Lewis, his worm grew 18% larger as well. So.
Hey now. One of us had to make that joke. One of us had to say it.
Sexpot Vicki Lewis.
She's the redhead one who's always hitting on him, right?
Yes.
Well, and that's kind of her character in this era. So, I mean.
Well, somebody had to remind somebody that Matthew Broderick was supposed to be sexy.
But I mean, like, she plays the same character, I think, even in Mouse Hunt. Like, she's just that. And in, was she in News Radio? I think she was in News Radio.
She's
the best.
I'm looking her up right now because I've honestly forgotten.
Anyway, I mean, and so they're looking for, and then this is when we're also introduced to Jeno Reno, who, if you don't know Jeno Reno, why don't you watch a goddamn movie now and again? Jeno Reno is...
This is for Matilda.
Which Matilda?
He's referring specifically to the movie Leon or Leon the Professional, which
Correct.
is
that was him.
A goddamn masterpiece.
Oh man, that's a great movie.
Which is a young Natalie Portman. Thank you.
Yep.
Which you guys couldn't hear because she's not on mic, but Natalie Portman. We have an audience again tonight. The lovely and regular panelist Kelsey. She didn't watch this movie with us, but
she didn't miss anything. I don't think.
Oh, charming as ever. She should be on every panel.
I won't disagree with you on that point.
However, Jeno Reno is one of my favorite foreign actors who shows up. Him and Marion Cotillard represent the French contingent of that world in my brain.
Not Gerard Depardieu?
Well, I guess if we're competing on boobs, him and Marion Cotillard are probably the closest.
That's true.
Yeah, I saw part of Cyrano de Bergerac with Gerard Depardieu in it, and then I saw him in a part of the sequel to 101 Dalmatians, and he looks like he's inflated quite a bit.
Well, I mean, the thing is...
Because he drank like 14 bottles of wine a day for a while, or at least that's what he claimed.
Reached Johnny Depp levels?
Well, yeah, but the difference is he doesn't chase it with cocaine, so you can support at least him in his, failed liver but clean living. I will also say that's something about the French diet. It keeps you charming and sexy until about age 55, and then you inflate, like Gerard Depardieu has as well. The difference is you don't lose your shame, so he still walks around in a man thong. I've seen My Father the Hero. I wish I hadn't, but I have.
And you ever watch that animated show Kid Notorious?
Of course I have. I think I introduced this to the world.
Where the French take over what's his name, Robert Evans' mansion, and they're all walking around in Speedos.
Jack Chirac especially, in fact, if I recall correctly.
I love how we've talking about French actors instead of Godzilla, because that's really the sort of movie we've decided to see.
To be fair, the French are like the B plot.
Yeah, that's
or I guess
true.
the C plot.
Was Gary Oldman in this movie? Because I swear he was one of the French soldiers in that scene. In that scene when
Jean Patrick, I believe is his name. It's not him, but I thought it was too.
Okay, so I wasn't the only one who thought that was him.
You're not. And this is also, I believe, our second Jeno Reno movie. We did Mission Impossible, and he's in the first one.
Oh, yes, he is.
But regardless, Matthew Broderick is brought into a military tent in New Jersey at this point because Manhattan has been tranced.
Well, originally he goes to like some island in the Pacific where Godzilla was, and they show him like Godzilla's footprint.
Where's the footprint, guys? I don't see it.
I don't see the sample.
Where's the sample? You're standing in it.
What? Where am I? Is it on my shoe? Oh, goodness. And that's the thing about the humor here. Like, you could cut 45 seconds from this scene, but they keep panning out and panning out and panning out and panning out and then panning out again. He's like, wait, am I standing in it? What? And you're just like, Christ.
The problem with a remake like this is when Godzilla first showed up in the 50s, at the very least, there hadn't been a Godzilla before, right? So there was nothing to compare it to. And now you're just like, oh yeah, giant footprint. That makes perfect sense, where it's really not supposed to.
Well, and then Jeno Reno was like, finds this guy on a fishing trawler, which is also a reference to a real thing. If you guys are curious, there's a movie you should watch, which is Atomic Cafe. But they get into this, where when we drop our first hydrogen bomb on the Bikini Islands, there's a fishing boat too close, and a guy becomes horribly irradiated. Now, we try to figure out what's going on and treat him. The Japanese, after a horrible nuclear incident, just keep the guy alive as long as possible.
Oh, this isn't Hiroshi Ouchi, is it?
It is Ouchi.
Okay.
Yeah. That's the bad example I'm talking about.
Yeah, that's the bad example.
The American example is different, but there's a guy in a boat dying essentially of radiation poisoning, and Jeno Reno is like, I am a doctor, kinda. And he holds up a lighter, and the lighter keeps turning blue whenever they get near the guy because he's so covered in Godzilla, I guess. And he goes, What did you see? What did you see, old man?
He calls him old man. I mean, really.
And he goes, Gojira. And they say Gojira 6 times, and everyone's supposed to shit themselves. But the problem is, I'm going to see a movie called Godzilla. The character is 60 years old at this point. I know what Godzilla is, man. Just get to him just stomping around Manhattan. Speaking of movies, Jason Takes Manhattan. Don't kill the people on the boat. Kill the people in Manhattan. It's the same thing here. The problem is, this movie is 90,000 hours long.
Yeah, this is longer than V for Vendetta, which you gave shit for that over its length.
Yeah, they needed to tighten up the middle a little bit. You know, after Audrey backstabs Nick and he loses his job before they go into dinosaur hell.
They needed to cut out pretty much all of the baby Godzilla raptor scenes.
Yeah.
Because that was a good 30-minute sequence in and of itself.
Yeah, no, and that's the problem. Like, all this stuff is not only awful, it takes too long. Like, if you tighten this movie up, so the military only destroys half the buildings they destroy, or they yell like at Michael Lerner half as often, all the points are made. Like, if you're talking about the rule of 3, this is the rule of 5.
Yeah.
Like, and then the Roger Ebert kicking gets 6 or 7.
That gets so many.
And then the character who helps Matthew Broderick save the day is like a third build character named Sergeant something or another that we are barely introduced to. I was like, who is Sergeant O'Neill and why does he matter?
Speaking of the Siskel and Ebert thing, and this is only something that's worse in retrospect, there's that scene at the end where Gene, the campaign aide, gives him a thumbs down and quits, and then Mayor Ebert's going, where are you going, Gene? I need you. A year after this movie came out, Siskel was dead.
Yeah. Yeah, and this is just, it's rough. And, I mean, the movie also came out 20 years before, almost to the day that Ebert died. So, whatever, everything.
Yeah, about 15 years or so.
Circle of life, who cares? Also, if you're curious what Daniel's talking about, the guy is Hisashi Ouchi. Ouchi. We're not responsible if you look him up. It's really a horrible story.
Oh, are you looking up the pictures?
No, I was just double checking because people look up what we talk about. Don't do it.
Oh, what was his first name again? Hisashi,
and that's his last name, right? Ouchi's his first because
right.
But he was exposed to radioactive material. And they kept him alive for 89 days. In fact, he died about a dozen times. They resurrected him.
They resuscitated him, even though he was clearly in pain. And don't look him up.
No, and it's the worst. We know a lot more about radiation because the Japanese just keep torturing people. But it's quite literally the worst. And they're just photos of him until the day he dies, and there's nothing left. Don't look it up.
Yeah,
don't.
I've seen the pictures. It's not pleasant.
Regardless,
he didn't become Godzilla, by the way, being exposed to radiation.
It'd be a nice karmic retribution if he hadn't and stepped on some people.
And it's also Japan. They don't really have a death penalty.
Not
You're
anymore.
Just guilty.
I think they do.
No,
they did.
Wait.
because
you're forced to commit suicide.
You're talking about, Japan's pretty sure still has the death penalty. They don't tell you when they're going to execute you, which some people really don't like.
They don't anymore. They got rid of it, and I know
they did.
Abe wants to bring it back
because they just executed the Shinrikyo guys like this year.
Do you want me to correct you, because we can edit this out? They were just refound guilty, but the thing about that is, what they don't do is they don't. Execution is different, because like what Daniel said is technically correct, but they were found guilty so long ago. It's a different set of laws now. It's like 5 people went to death by firing squad in Utah
because they'd selected it before Utah got rid of that as the death penalty.
So now the current.
So no more going forward.
Right.
Okay.
And the other side of it is, you can, if you're given a death sentence, like a life sentence, you can commit suicide. And so you have ritual suicide. And so this guy, the 6 people who kept him alive, doctors and surgeons, they ritually committed suicide because it was considered torture. It's rough. Like you can watch the story, but like his bones turn to dust. They're literally holding him up with hooks because he can't breathe or eat on his own.
Is this the ouchie guy?
Yeah.
All of his skin fell off.
20 days into the process. He lived another 69 days past that. You want to see the picture?
Not really.
I'll show it.
It's okay. It's still better than this movie. Okay, so if you're editing, you can stop deleting stuff here. So what do you guys say, man?
Well, you can play with it a little bit so that segues back into the movie.
Well, right, but like this is where my segue was going to be.
Okay.
So speaking of torture, we just watched this movie. Segue. After telling Matthew Broderick that we don't care that your worm grew 18% larger
that day.
18% sounds pretty big. It's enormous.
One wonders if it could still function if it's only grown 18%.
So what should we get into? So the French are aware, and Jeno Reno and his merry gang of pranksters are floating around. We also have character actor, what the hell's this guy's name? Colonel Hicks, right? It's Kevin Dunn.
Oh, from Small Soldiers and stuff, right?
mean, if you look at a picture of Kevin Dunn, you've seen him. He's in the Transformers movies. He's in Warrior and Dave. I mean, he's just a guy whose face you recognize. But all he does is put upon everyone. Then finally, the last group we're introduced to is WDIF, I think it is. The local TV station. And at the local TV station, we have Hank Azaria, who plays Animal. He's the cameraman. We have the anchorman, who's played by Harry Shearer. We have Vicky sorry, go ahead.
And the whole gag around Harry Shearer's character is he's like 5'0" and is constantly put with these like extremely tall female co-anchors.
Well, and specifically Busty. He's like a horn dog, right?
Oh yeah. Well, he's totally hitting on what's her name?
Maria Pittio's character,
yes,
who's Audrey Timmons.
Mm-hmm.
And Audrey Timmons, who is, she's a gopher. Like, she's a researcher. She gets coffee. She's a nothing. But she wants to be a reporter or an anchor person. And she happens to know Nico Tatopoulos, who's Matthew Broderick's character.
No, you mispronounced that.
Nico Tatopoulos.
Yes. There you go.
Nicotine.
Yeah. There you go. He happens to know Nicotine. And Nicotine's problem is, Nicotine is that loser you met in college who's still obsessed with his college or his high school girlfriend.
She's still obsessed with him. The way she jumps on him when she sees him on TV.
But here's the thing: she's looking to take advantage of poor Matthew Broderick.
She saw him on TV, even just on TV, and like, oh, that's him.
Right, but because she wants to advance her career, right? Because she wants to because the story is on the experts who are tracking this Godzilla monster, and she's like, I know him, right? And she says specifically to Animal, this can get me on TV.
Well, the strange thing about this movie is there's only like 3 or 4 women characters, right? There's Maria Pittio, there's Vicki Lewis, there's There's Animal's wife, and then there's Godzilla, who is technically, they refer to Godzilla as he, but then they say stuff like he's pregnant.
A very unusual he.
Yes, that actual line from the movie.
Oh my God! Among other really shitty lines we'll get to. Go.
And people keep talking about the Bechdel test, but this movie just fails every test when it comes to women characters.
Well, when they're talking about how Audrey's too nice, it's Lucy and Audrey talking and Animal's just agreeing.
Well, there's like the three characters. They're either like always obsessed with the males around them, or they're just so two-dimensional. It's so
and let's not,
too nice.
Well, and let's not give the guys any credit either. Like the world, like. And we hate movies, and I hate referring to a better podcast than us, but...
Speak for yourself, good sir. No, I'm not going to even say that.
But, I mean, like, they refer to, like, disaster movies in terms of 9/11s. This is a million 9/11s, guys. They knocked down half Manhattan, and you can pretend like everyone evacuated in 10 minutes, but there are thousands dead, and even more dead because the military keeps shooting up good buildings, right?
Oh, yeah. Well, by that point, the city's supposed to be evacuated, but...
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure everyone got the memo and got to New Jersey or whatever the But, like, this whole idea that, anyone is saved is ridiculous, but like they're trying to forgive people in this movie. Let's back up. How do we even get to this point? Godzilla arrives on the island and he immediately starts knocking stuff down with some of the worst CGI that 1998 had to offer.
There's this scene in this movie when they're searching the tunnels and they don't see anything, and then the gag is that Godzilla's right behind them, and I'll use the pronoun they use in the movie. He opens his eye and is like watching the soldiers, and they don't notice it. And it looks so fake.
Well, and the problem is no one knows where to look. Mm-hmm. You're talking about a thing that is world-ending. You have a 6-story building running down the streets of Manhattan, and people are looking up, down. There's a point where they put a bunch of fish in front of the what's the triangle building? The old
Flatiron?
The Flatiron building. Thank you. The old New York Times building, or New York Post building. Excuse me. And Godzilla just comes out of the sewer because the thing can not only barely fit between two buildings, but can also squeeze into the sewer because he's Magic Man.
Well, lest we also forget, among the damage to the city, the Warner Brothers and Disney stores on wherever were cleared out by looters, which was prominent enough to get mentioned in a news report.
And also, oh my God, I was going to make an X-Files joke and I don't remember. Who is the guy who could stretch out and fingery?
Eugene Victor Toombs.
Toombs! He pulls at Toombs because he also slips between the buildings underneath the city. At one point, the sergeant in charge goes, "It's Manhattan. He could be anywhere." It's a goddamn 6-story building running around. It's not, again, it's the Bugs Bunny, like, I'm going to give these missiles the slip, and hides between two apartment complexes.
It's trying to have the best of both worlds. It's trying to be a giant monster movie that can destroy everything, and it's also trying to be an alien movie where your monster can hide.
And also try to be a Roland Emmerich movie where the American flag is flip-flopping and a bunch of people are trying...
Oh, and the military is the best, of course.
But here, the military is the worst.
Except in terms of hitting a world's biggest target.
I mean, it's practically a goddamn shooting gallery, and they're like, you're supposed to be shooting where it's gonna be, not where it is.
That's how you beat alien invaders.
Which they didn't play. I would love to see them training on like the Area 51 video game and trying to figure this shit out. Anyway, after Matthew Broderick gets yelled at in the face by Godzilla, he takes a sample of some gack and he's like, this monster might be pregnant.
Oh yeah, he just randomly goes to a pharmacy. He's like, can I have all these pregnancy tests that measure this one chemical and this other pheromone or whatever?
At one point, he runs into a pharmacy, and this is how you know that whole "we've evacuated the island" is bullshit, because this woman is running a random pharmacy. But my wife looks up from her phone and goes, "Wait, why do they think Godzilla is pregnant?" And I go, "Shh, Matthew Broderick."
I think maybe he was getting the idea that it was nesting.
How? And there you go.
I mean, you can love this movie all you want, but like that makes no sense. This is always like, well, guys, I read ahead a few pages in the script, and it might be pregnant, so I better pretend like it is. I just that's one leap, like because they argue that he's not eating the fish, but it's in his mouth. They have no reason to understand. It's the same way that in Independence Day, there's a scene where Data is trying to analyze the alien's body, right? I guess we already did Alien too, or Independence Day too, so you can watch that. But the thing about that is he's not exactly saying, I understand it. They're figuring it out. But I guess he thought that was the most important scene of the movie. So Roland Emmerich's just like, we need a magical scientist who can say, hey, guys, guess what? It's pregnant.
Yeah, magical science. He spouts so much annoying techno babble earlier in the movie.
Of a new species, the first of its kind.
A hybrid. It's not. They show two different kinds of lizards, but they can't mate with each other.
You're right. And then to Matt's point, if you haven't seen this movie, the military gets so bored they just leave him talking at least twice, right? Like he's like, guys, this is important. What if it's pregnant and there's and they literally just leave him as though he's a nerd, and he almost want like a sergeant to kick mud in his face.
Are you sure that didn't just happen like in between scenes, like the military come up to Matthew Broderick and go, stop hitting yourself?
Also, I want to make it clear.
They gave him a swirly.
Oh, I'm sure.
I want to make it clear. I'm enjoying talking about this movie so much more than watching it.
Oh, watching this was a slog.
I mean, just a personal note. My wife is having car trouble, so we're looking at new cars, and we just kept in the middle of the movie. My wife's like, "Hey, look at this one," and I'm just like, "I will gladly look at that new car."
When miles per gallon in the city is more important to you than the movie you're watching, it's a bad movie.
And that's the commercial that goes between episodes of The Simpsons when I'm not doing this.
Oh, there you go. Oh, the Yellow Man Show? Is that what it's called now?
Lello Man. My daughter loves to watch Lello Man and Homer.
Aww.
It's very cute. Anyway, how does this movie get together? They blow up at one point. They think after throwing him into like the Hudson Bay, like he has.
Well, they like do another flight air attack against him, and he runs away and then dives into the Hudson Bay, and then
they
like,
blow him up with a submarine.
Don't worry, the Navy will take care of this. It's like, when did the Navy come in?
Well, this has been going on for several hours, so probably they've put out a APB.
But also, something that bothers me here. At All Points Bulletin, if you see any goddamn king lizards, you gotta blow them. But the thing that bothers me is the only government we get is a mayor. You wouldn't want one president, even if he's in shadow, saying, this is a president. What's going on here?
Now, to be fair, they do refer to the governor in one scene. The governor.
Oh, yeah, the governor. So Cuomo's somewhere going, this is bad.
Well, those are New York State National Guard. They're deployed, not the regular army, because they specifically say that.
Yeah, so the president has just written off all of Manhattan?
Well,
the military has shown up, man.
Well, it seems... Well,
or does the New York National Guard have submarines?
No, the Navy has submarines. The New York National Guard has all the all the soldiers and tanks and stuff.
And the New York National Guard has tanks?
Oh, yeah. All the National Guards have tanks, and aircraft, just not as many.
Okay. Well, I mean, if
F-14 Tomcats, as they have with Sidewinder missiles.
I mean, if local police forces have tanks, then why not the National Guard?
Not 1998. Waco was only a few years before.
Oh, yeah, that's a good
true,
point.
Yeah. This is before, what was her name? Janet Reno ended up blowing. Well, I mean, they were covering the kids in gasoline, according to audio tapes. So.
Yeah.
Anyway, so they think Godzilla is dead. At this point, we cut back to Matthew Broderick and Vicky Vale. Yeah, okay, you're right.
Oh,
Vicky Vale.
That's a good
yeah,
pull
so
right there.
Vicky Vale there is trying to flirt with Matthew Broderick, who has still got a 2/3 hard on for her. He can't pull off a full erection anymore because he's Matthew Broderick. But
it lasted for 4 hours once, so I had to go to see the doctor.
And she's like, hey, you know how you're still in love with me? And he says, no. And then he closes that laptop that he has with pictures of her all over it. I'm sorry, man. I dated a girl in high school and I had a thing for her. I don't have pictures of her anywhere. Matthew Broderick's supposed to be in his 30s at least. You don't have pictures of an ex-girlfriend from 20 years ago.
Yes.
Well, I think it was that long ago. They're all of them are in their like early 30s, I think, because
yeah, but
you see
he said
his
college. So it's at least a decade.
I think it was 8 years, so it was.
Okay, fine. You don't have fantasy pictures of a girlfriend from 8 years ago. I get having a rough few months, man, but like...
Oh, I'm sure Matthew Broderick got very acquainted with his friend Captain Morgan in those few months.
Captain Captain Vosglov or something. He was in Chernobyl.
Oh yeah, good point.
Yeah. But
this is the only place I can go to hide from my sorrows.
Well, but I mean, effectively, since Vicki Lewis essentially tore her top off the second you see him, like, come on, man, you're still Matthew Broderick.
Look at the guy that she was hanging around with before then, the guy with the goatee who looked like Kevin James.
Craven, Dr. Craven.
Yeah, who was like sneezing into his hand and then trying to shake hands.
Gross. Right. Okay. Yes, gross.
It's okay. He had a summer cold. He's sorry.
The last 2/3 of this movie is made up by like a will they, won't they, and Hank Azaria, and we should talk about Hank Azaria.
I'll start it. I found the Italian couple hilarious.
They literally use the W word to refer to an Italian person. Yes.
Each other, though. I mean...
Well, right. Okay.
Even so.
Okay, I don't have a problem with the WAP. I mean, it is racist. I mean, I get it. And Matt's fine with racism. I get it. But here's the thing. That doesn't bother me.
People get to trash their own ethnic group.
He's not actually Italian.
The character is Italian.
Okay, yes, but if you put on blackface, that doesn't mean you're a black person. Right?
Also, what kind of name is Azaria if it's not Italian? It sounds Italian.
How would you know what
not.
You're making assumptions.
He's Eastern European, but I mean, like, we can get into this, Matt, but that's not the point of this. We're supposed to have joy at the end, not just kicking Matt for racism. But the reason I hate this character is not that no one talks like this. They're not actually like someone from Brooklyn is you or me, right? It's hipster central. Like he's talking like someone who was born in a Staten Island dumpster.
Yeah, pretty much.
Was it hipster central? I can't do the accent. Was it hipster central in 1998?
No, but it was never this.
You could actually afford to live in New York City in 1998 on a journalist's salary.
And he was born and raised in L.A. Like, this is not an actual Brooklynite. He's a cartoon character. He's also the same voice of Apu. Like, this is just a character he does. He went to college with this guy. And that's not to say I don't love Hank Azaria, because I do. He's real funny. But it was as though Roland Emmerich's like, I have no jokes in this movie. Hey, funny man, make me some jokes. And the whole rest of the movie is him going, hey, you destroyed all of Manhattan, but you ruined the garden? Goddamn ruined the garden? Forget about it. You gotta die now. And you're just like, wait, the fact that 60,000 people are dead doesn't bother you at all. The fact that the Chrysler building is destroyed, the Flatiron building? No. The fact that you can't see the goddamn Knicks play? Are you kidding me? I mean, and it's as though he grew up in a Warner Brothers cartoon. The reason why the character bothers me is not that he's here. It's that the movie's like, we need to be funny. So for the next hour, he's the punchline to everything. Oh, Godzilla! Hoo-ha! Like,
well, at least they tried to give him jokes and acknowledge he was a comedian. I mean, Harry Shearer gets the real short end of the stick here because he's supposed to be kind of the villain.
Yeah,
why would you do that to Harry Shearer?
Well, does a good job playing a villain. He is a piece of garbage.
Yes, but he's a piece of garbage, but that's not why you put Harry Shearer in things unless he's doing Charles Montgomery Burns.
Well, I mean, and here's the thing. I don't disagree with Matt on Harry Shearer. It's just 6 too many characters as well. Like, if you get rid of one of them, it's a better movie because the movie's tighter. But like, if you want it to be the animal show, you give Hank Azaria one scene, and then you or Harry Shearer one scene.
Make the cameo where an animal almost gets stomped to death by Godzilla. Make that his death scene, and then they like recover the footage, and that's how they find out more about Godzilla.
Oh, and just because I get these emails and I don't share them with people, but I do. Hank Azaria is not only from New York, so this is probably his neighbor, but he's Jewish. So he's not Italian. He is Jewish. And he was married to Helen Hunt for a year.
The last part doesn't surprise me as much.
Yeah, but he's a Sephardic Jew, so there you go. But
I am surprised to learn he was from New York.
Yeah, he's from Queens, in fact. So he might be the Jewish Jew that we've talked about on the show. But so his neighbor,
Gewalt.
But he is definitely not an Italian from Brooklyn.
So did he know Eddie Murphy during his time in Queens?
You know what? He's old enough too, because he's also older than you expect. He just looks good because he's the rippedest man we've also talked about, who is in a Schwarzenegger. I'm actually curious how this movie did, because like V for Vendetta became a cult classic. It didn't do great.
Well, I think Godzilla made a profit, but because its budget was so ludicrously high, it didn't make much of one.
No.
So
That's right.
So they ended up nuking the sequel, which I looked at the script of the sequel and it looked so stupid.
Wait, there's actually a script of the sequel.
Well, they summarized it in like a Godzilla wiki, like Act 1, Act 2, Act 3.
And
it just looks so stupid.
Well, what happened in it?
The little Godzilla that showed still alive at the end of the movie ends up in the Australian outback, and Nick is marrying Audrey, and then he gets kidnapped again, like in the car that won't open the doors, and they end up in Australia, and there's a monster island for no reason at all, even though the mythology for the remake does not allow for a monster island.
So basically, they were trying to remake Destroy All Monsters?
Yeah, pretty much. It sounds
And there's giant bugs. Okay, the giant bugs part was cool.
Oh, boy.
Well, the giant bug, like, this really seems more like King Kong, right? Like the...
Well, Godzilla fought giant bugs back in the day, like Mothra and stuff. Right?
Well, right, but like Monster Island and everything like that. Like, I know that's where King Kong and Godzilla fought, in fact.
Yeah, because in the ToHo monster movies, I think the kaiju are all from one place, or at least they all get put on one place, kind of like a reservation.
Yeah.
But in this one, Godzilla is just some critter that came from the French Polynesian nuclear test zone, not like a mysterious monster island.
Yeah.
So you go to a French nuclear test site and there's more? Okay, that might actually make some sense.
Well, I mean, the thing is, none of this is a bad idea. It's just, it's overthought. These movies are simple. I mean, and I know Matt's looking at my screen, so I'll just go ahead and say.
Okay, fine.
No. It's not a critique. It was just like, we can't play the game if you do it that way.
I can't remember anything that was on the screen. Go for it.
But I mean, like, to wit, like the movie was $130 million in production cost. It profited domestically 136, so it lost money, right? Because like when you're having hot sauces at Taco Bell named for you, right? You lose money. Anyway, regardless,
there was a Saturday morning cartoon that came out after this, though.
Yeah, it was the sequel, but with the one that the little baby that survived becomes Nick's pet, and they fight other monsters.
I had never actually seen it. Now that I realize,
I think I might have seen like one episode a long time ago.
I mean, I saw this in theaters, so I remember the Puff Daddy song, and
oh yeah, where he takes "Kashmir" by Led Zeppelin, and that's the song.
I was gonna sing part of it, but it'll probably be bleeped. But it's like enemies, my foes, damn these hoes, they're stepping on my toes. Come with
like
me.
that.
Broke it down, Nick. Break it down.
It reminds me of that bit from a show that Daniel and I know maybe only, but Clone High, where he goes, I call it, what if we took a song? Kennedy's telling this to Gandhi, and if you don't understand what that is, you already need to look it up. But he goes, what if we took a song and we played that song, but then you rapped over the top? I call it song taking.
Yep.
Or song taking.
I remember that.
And they do it with Stars and Stripes Forever. You're a grand old flag.
That's right. Yes.
All right. So the last act of this movie, they think they've killed Godzilla, and they're in.
Well, first that tape leaks to the news because Audrey stole it from Tapamapafapalopoulos, and so he gets thrown out of the project by the military, and then the DGSC. Kidnaps Nick and is like going, okay, we want to find the nest that you're hypothesizing about. Let's go get it. And then Audrey feels guilty about ruining Nick's life, so she goes after him, and they find the nest, and there's like a 30-minute raptor attack.
Well, and here's the thing.
Yeah, because they all hatch, and they're basically steroid versions of Jurassic Park raptors with
Pretty
fin
much.
backs.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. She should feel guilty. She did nothing right. She doesn't deserve any credit. She's not a heroine. She's the worst. She's the worst. Right?
Well, to be fair, he never said it was off the record.
It doesn't matter. You're not a...
I know. That was her. That's literally a line she used.
It is. And here's the thing. This isn't like... This is stupid. I'm not even going to argue this, but like, it doesn't improve anything. The fact of the matter is, all it does is ruin what the military is trying to do, which is stop Godzilla. Like, this isn't some corruption case. This is literally trying to save the day. Also, I don't know why the military cares. It just is a plot point in a movie that doesn't need a plot point. This movie's a mess. And so at the end of the day, there's a chase scene between Godzilla and a yellow cab.
Well, they blow up Madison Square Garden and kill all of Godzilla's offspring.
Except for one, which jumps at the camera.
Yeah, at the tail end of the movie.
And Roger Ebert fires Gene Siskel, and to which Gene Siskel gives a thumbs down.
Yeah. And yes, there's a scene between a yellow cab and Godzilla, and then Godzilla... Which bridge is it?
Oh, this is something that bothered the hell out of me because I know what Manhattan looks like. Godzilla is in Liberty Square Park, and the closest bridge is not. Okay, they're like, Matthew Broderick goes, I need the nearest suspension bridge. And he goes, that would be the Brooklyn Bridge, which is not.
That's what I thought
it's on the complete other end of the island.
That's what I thought the line was, but I didn't want to say it because that just sounded wrong.
Because it's Roland Emmerich, and he needs to destroy a landmark in every shot, and they've already destroyed the Chrysler Building, and no one could ever blow up the Twin Towers, so they're fine. But everything else blows up. They blow up Madison Square Garden.
Are we seriously going to let Nick get away with that now?
You are.
I think we should.
And the other thing that they get wrong is Mayor Ebert is talking as the mayor in front of the quote-unquote Capitol. But he's wrong because they're actually having him stand in front of the old National Bank on Wall Street. He's literally standing where the statue of George Washington is because Roland Emmerich doesn't care about what the actual landscape is. He just wants to blow up landmarks. And so the first shot when Godzilla shows up, he destroys Wall Street.
Yep.
This movie has no concept of literally anything.
Well, anyway, Godzilla gets trapped on the Brooklyn Bridge, and then he dies when the Air Force shoots their last remaining missiles into him.
Also, I want to make clear, we could talk about this for another hour, because like at one point at Madison Square Garden, they want to prove that they should blow up the arena, but the phone lines are all down because Mayor Ebert let people back into the city.
Is that why they were down?
Well, because like the circuits were down because they were so busy and people are trying to get back into town.
Okay.
And he's like, just turn on the cameras. And like whatever Guido is there is like, Ed is like, hey guy, like he's talking like a mafiosi, whatever.
Hey, there's no Ranger game on tonight.
Thank you. And you're just like, I'm sorry, guys. Like, he would at least look at the camera stream. He wouldn't go like, there's no Ranger game on. What the fuck is wrong with you? And
is there a technical error with our feed in Madison Square Garden? Is somebody there trying to mess with our private office?
Like, again, we could go on for another hour. This movie makes no sense. The number of times they're just like, there's no Godzilla on this island. You're just like, the thing weighs 60,000 tons. Like, he's an aircraft carrier who disappears. Did Mario get the invisibility cap? Like, what is going on? Then Godzilla dies. And when Godzilla dies, we're supposed to care. Like, everyone's like, oh, Godzilla.
They're trying to do the King Kong bit where King Kong's falling off the Empire State Building and is like slowly moaning itself to death.
And like, 'tis beauty killed the beast. And you're just like, there's no beauty here. This is a Roland Emmerich movie. It's just a lot of like dick swinging and then like dead monstermen. Oh, God damn it. Like, the thing that frustrates me about the movie isn't the movie itself, is that if Tobey Maguire could make a phantom edit, like, there's something charming about how incompetent this is, but it's 1,000 years too long. Like, I felt like I turned to dust like I drank from the wrong cup, man. Damn it.
So it was a cup of the carpenter that saved your life?
Is it Tobey Maguire that makes all those phantom edits? Or
no, it's the other one. It's the one who looks like him from 70s Show.
Yeah. Toby.
No, it's Topher Grace. Thank you.
Yes.
Topher Grace is the one who's the masterman.
He could probably edit this thing down to 5 minutes.
Well, right. Like, if there was a director's cut that was 3 hours long, he would spit out a 90-minute cut that could be something. Like, I mean, to your point, Matt, and I'm not going to steal your thunder, but, like, there have been other more recent Godzilla movies that feel messy. This movie feels like no one had, like, everyone's just like, Roland, you made a good monster movie before. Make another one. I mean, and...
Make it like Jurassic Park.
Make it like Independence Day. Make, like, whatever model you want. And, like, there's just no guide. There's no nothing. Sorry. Let's get to Final Judgment. We've been talking for almost an hour on this movie. Daniel, go. I'd ask for a rebuttal, but we already got most of the butt.
Somebody's been eating too many tacos.
We had Pizza Hut, sir.
Even
That's
worse.
The same thing, yeah. Mr. Quinn.
Okay. It wasn't bad. I liked it. I mean, it dragged a little bit, especially toward the middle when you've got all the personal drama taking the front stage and the monster not being around. But it's not a bad movie, and there's a lot of good detail stuff, like how Godzilla moves around. If he's supposed to be a giant mutant marine iguana, he's got the gait of one. His limbs look like one. He can go from 2 and 4 limbs.
Uh-huh.
And I just thought it was, I mean, not wonderful, great movie. I did buy it, to have and to watch occasionally.
I thought I would do the same thing for giggles. I didn't because issues with technology. Here's the thing I thought about it. CGI is some of the worst CGI I've ever seen. This is 1998. By this point, Independence Day CGI is already better. That was 2 years before this, and the same director. This feels like someone thought of a movie, didn't know how to fix it, so they fixed it with CGI, and the CGI was terrible.
There's the scene where it ducks under the missiles. It goes gray model for a second.
Well, and nothing has weight. He swings out, like, he knocks out like chunks of buildings. People are nearby. There's no rumble. There's no rupture. There's no shake. No one notices when a monster walks by. And he slips through the sewers and the subways like water. There's no shake. Like, if a monster that was 30 feet tall walked by, the ground would shake. That's something that Spielberg nailed.
Yeah.
That's something even Cloverfield did a good job with. There's no weight to the monster. He's invisible. Like, when bombs hit him, they go from looking real to looking like a cartoon and turning to dust. And, like, even in 1998, even if you thought the CGI looked good, you didn't think that the monster, like, recoiled. The problem with this movie is not that it's bad, because bad means that there's bad acting. Some of the acting is fine. It's that there's not a plot. The plot is fine. It's that there's so much that it feels like nothing, to the point where Godzilla doesn't matter. He disappears for so much of this movie that when they made the ToHo production of it, which is, there's a Godzilla versus Godzilla, effectively, in 1999, where the real Godzilla, the ToHo Godzilla, fights this Godzilla. Mm-hmm. Do you know what it's called?
I forget which one it is. I think it was a little later than 1999. I think it was more...
Maybe 2000. Maybe it's called Godzilla 2000. There's one.
I remember that one. Didn't happen there, but there was one where that happened, and actual Godzilla kills American Godzilla in like 30 seconds.
Because, like, the idea is that what Godzilla is very specifically is a monster that's on screen all the time and people reacting to it. This movie feels so inconsequential. Independence Day feels consequential. Like, when they destroy a building, they linger on that. Nothing matters in this. Like people don't exist in this world. That's why Independence Day is good. Like when the lightning bolt hits that building in LA where the people are like, welcome aliens, grim death is everywhere. There should be grim death in Godzilla. He destroys Manhattan, for Christ's sake. No one cares. And that's what this movie feels like. Rotten Tomatoes gives it a 22%. 22% of this movie mattered. It nailed it.
Yeah.
Well, something I forgot to mention. You said you weren't going to steal my thunder, so now drop the thunder.
Please, take my thunder.
There's an article, I think, of Variety that said that this movie was in many ways superior to the 2014 film, which with
Bryan Cranston.
Yeah, Bryan Cranston, which I agree with. This is a lot more entertaining than the 2014 film.
I took 2 dumps today. One was better than the other. That doesn't make either of them a good thing.
Well, on the one hand, I can actually remember what happened in this film, and if you put a gun to my head, I can't remember anything that happened in the 2014 version. On the other hand,
I can do that with my face. I can make it sad too.
There you go.
But I mean, and fart aside, there is some charm in this movie, and I will give it to 2 people, Matthew Broderick and Jeno Reno. And those scenes between the 2 of them might be the best part, because Matthew Broderick's like, hey, I want the movie to go over there. And he's like, Jeno Reno's like, I'm desperately trying to get you out of this movie. Oh no, the movie's on both sides. I can't get out. And
Jeno Reno at least seemed like he knew what he was doing and what sort of movie he was in.
Well, and it's the problem with Roland Emmerich movies in general. There's 6 movies going on, and if they hit, it's a good movie, and if they don't, it's a bad movie. And like The Patriot and Independence Day work because those movies line up, and The Day After Tomorrow and this don't because, whoosh, this is a swing and a miss. And with that, my contribution to Monster Movie Month flutters away.
Ooh.
But stay tuned next week and every future week, because both Daniel and Matt, who are around this table, and Thomas all have a monster movie coming. And as a reminder, join the Facebook group if you're not on it. But if you are, we will have a post up. And tell us which monster movie we should do. Haven't done yet. Because come next year, not next season, but in the new year, we will be doing a listener request month.
Ooh.
It's already planned. It's already scheduled. And between Precocious Kid Month and Cool in College Month, this month, and the rest of the months that are still to come, we will be picking 4 of them to do a listener request month. So contribute, pay attention, join us. And stay tuned next week and every future week as we put another piece of your past on trial. And for the bonus month, keep listening for Daniel and us for those.
Myopic Defend Your Childhood is hosted by Nick Hoffman, edited by Candice Burns, and executive produced by Nick Hoffman and Candice Burns. It is produced by Daniel Suttis, Matthew Quinn, and Thomas Sherman. We are a proud member of the ESO Network and a product of Do Better Podcasting. Our theme is Surf Shimmy by Kevin MacLeod, provided at incomptech.com. It is licensed under Creative Commons Attribution Free License. And thanks.
This has been a broadcast of the ESO Network. Be part of the crew and help support our shows by donating to our ESO Patreon or by shopping through Amazon.com or the TeePublic Store, which can all be found at www.esonetwork.com. The ESO Network, your station for all things geek.